Hello everyone, welcome to tutorial 7. In this week we are going to talk about how to design a web form. Basically this is the last tutorial that we are going to cover from this book. The rest we will focus on JavaScript, which I will provide you the material, and I will also show you some of the website that you can go and practice some more JavaScript. So let's continue with our HTML. Some of the things that we will learn in this chapter, we are going to actually talk about the web forms and how they actually work and how they work with the servers. Also, we can talk about how to create forms and field sets. We also discuss labels and input boxes, and as well as look at the layout, form layout. Most of you have probably used forms before to complete it or something like that online. So we're basically going to learn this, how we are going to create those web forms. We're also going to talk about how to work with the date and time fields. Also, we will talk about selection lists in the forms. We will also discuss the buttons options, and as well as how to create checkboxes and text area boxes. We will also talk more about how to create sliders, range sliders and spinners. We will discuss data list, and as well as we will create, of course, the form buttons, and also we will learn about validating a form and applying some of the validation styles. So basically, probably all of you have seen such a structure of a web form before. You have to probably fill it out, some part of it. Maybe, you have to put in some of the fields like city, state, postal codes, and all that. So there are different parts into a form. The postal codes, state, city, these are a label that's associated with the input field. So you're going to actually input your stuff in here. So that's why we call them input field. Also for postal code, you can see, you might have some kind of a deemed part in there, as you can see. So this is the placeholder text, which is deemed with the input box. In here, sometimes we might have a default value that can appear there. And here we have input control box, which display the placeholder text. And this is also the field set legend that appears at the top left corner of the field set, and by default. That will kind of show you what this form is. So basically, the web form, they allow users to enter the data, and it can be saved and processed. So it's another way to accept user input. The user can fill in those inputs in there, and it also allows the creation of interactive website for the user's feedback. So we are going to look at some of the parts of a web form. Basically, a form can contain controls. Also, we might call those controls sometimes the widgets, which are the objects that allow user to interact with the form. HTML can support several types of widgets or controls. Each data entry control is associated with the data field, and the data field is basically store the data value that are supplied by a users. So let's look at type of widgets that we have. Input box to insert input and numeric value. Option buttons, or sometimes we might want to call them radio buttons, for selecting data value from a small predefined set of options. Also selection list for selecting data values. checkbox for selecting data values limited to basically yes or no, and text area box for entering text string that it could have maybe several lines into it. The type of widgets, we could have spin boxes for entering integer value that are confined to a specific range. Sliders control for entering numeric value confined to a specific range as well. We might have calendar control for selecting the date and time, and color pickers for choosing the color value that we might have. So this is an example of a survey form. So most of the surveys is in terms of forms. Survey is a very popular way of creating it, especially if you want to get people's feedback in there. So here we are using various basically controls or widgets. So the input box, we have the option box here, yes and no. In here for the date, we have the calendar control. In here for selection, we have the selection list box. In here, the spinner box. Here we have the check marks box. And here we have the text area box. And in here, which is also a lot of people are using it for survey, is the slider control from a scale of 0 to 10, for example. So once the field value have been entered by the users, they are basically processed by a program running the user's computer or on a web server, which is located in a secure location. So basically, a web form is used to collect data from a customer for an order, and the server program processes the data and handles the billing and delivery. So we will concentrate on the web form, how to create that. So in here, basically there is an interaction between the form and the web server. So how do we start writing a web form? Basically, all web forms are marked using the form elements. So you have the form tag here, form ID, text, attributes, and then you put your content, and then you will close your form tag. The ID identifies that form. Attributes is show you how the form should be processed by the browser, and the content is basically the form's content that you're going to have. So a form element, it can be placed anywhere within the body of your page. So there's no restriction for that. Forms also can contain page elements such as table, paragraph, inline images, and headings. So this is the form element. So this is the ID that identifies this form is a server. And then you don't have to put those attributes in there. You can also close your web form tag. The action method, how to interact with the web server, we have the action method and inst type attributes. They have to be included in the form to be able to specify where and how to send the form. So we have the form action, equals the URL, the method type, and then the type, which is and then we have the content there. So the action attributes provides the location of the web server program that processes the form. The method attribute specify how the browser should send the form data to the server, and int type attribute specify how the form data should be encoded, basically as it is being sent into the server. We have two types of attributes, two possible values for method attributes, get method and post method. Get method tells the browser to append the form data to the end of the URL specified in the action attribute. And post method sends the form data in its own separate data stream. Each method has its use, but the post method is considered to be more secure in terms of the data transfer. Basically, that's the job of the web administrator, which can basically give us information which of the two methods we should use when we are accessing the script running on the server. The ink type attribute also has 3 possible values in there. So basically, these are the values and the description in there that you can read more about it. In this example here, we have a script element is an HTML element used to access and run JavaScript program that will run within the user's browser. So in here, we are basically using the JavaScript, which we will discuss more in next lecture, and also there in tutorial 9 that we will discuss more about the JavaScript. But in here, you're just going to add this code in this tutorial to the document head so that it can be applied throughout this tutorial. We will have this in there. And so we will basically, this is external JavaScript that we are going to use in this tutorial. So now that we have added the form element to the server page, we can start populating the server forms with the control and other features. We can start in this tutorial, because we are creating the survey, we are going to add field sets. Field sets, they are groups field that share a common purpose. Field set, you can use this syntax for it. ID identifies the field set, and the content is the form content within the field set. In this example, we are basically organizing it into 2 field sets. The customer info field set, which include the customer contact information and stuff like that, and then the exp info, which basically wants to have the customer expression of the restaurant. So we are actually dividing it into 2 different field sets. We can also add field set legends. Basically, the field set legend describes its content using the legend element. So you can put the legend there, text, and then close the tag. The text is the text of the legend. The legend element contains only text and no nested elements. By default, legends are placed in the top left corner of the field set box, and they can be moved to a different location by using our CSS positioning style that we have learned previously. So in here, in this example here, we are adding a field set legend. So the legend is the customer information. And in here, the legend is share your experience of Red Ball Pizza. The next thing that we can add on our survey form or any other form that we are creating is creating input boxes. So most of the forms, they are basically designed to receive user input, and so we can use this syntax for it. Input name ID equals this ID, and the name attributes provides the name of the data field associated with the control, and the ID attribute identifies the control in which the user entered the field value, and the type attribute indicates the data type of the field. In here, you can see different type values for the input element and how their control are typically displayed in most current browsers. So these are all the type value and the controls that are displayed by the browser in here. You can take advantage of using these. So adding the input into the form. This is example in here that we are adding these name. So these are the input boxes that we are actually entering in: name, street, city, state, postal code, phone number, and email. So basically, the first part is the name of the field associated with the input box. Then we have the ID that's associated with the input box. And then we have type of it. So in here, most of them, the type is text. In here, for the phone number, the type is tel. And for the email, the type is email. Most mobile and tablet devices, they don't have actually physical keyboards, and since we want to be able, a lot of people want to use these on their these forms on their phone or mobile devices, we can use the virtual keyboard. That basically are software representation of a physical device. Web form can be made responsive by displaying different virtual keyboard for each input type that you are going to have. So with an input box for telephone number, it's more convenient to have digits instead of alphabetical characters and prominently displayed on the keyboard. So in this example here, you can, or actually I don't have it. You can look at it on page, let me see, 514. You can see different different input types with text, email, and basically number, URL, or the type telephone. Next thing that we're going to talk about is adding field labels. To associate a text string with control, the text string has to be enclosed with the label element. So you're going to have a label tag. And so you will have label for ID, that you are going to have the label text and close the tag. The ID is the ID of the control that's associated with the label, and label text is the text of the label. So in here, we have the label element here, and then for attribute associated with the, associate the label with the name box. You have it here. And then you have, of course, your input tag as well. So all of them input, they have a label that will show. So the label is showing what the input box is. So there are two general layouts. Labels are placed directly above the input control, or labels and control are placed side by side. So this is one column layout, as you can see, and this is two column layout. We can actually define default values and placeholders for our forms. The value attribute is used to specify a default field. So in this case, we will put the value attribute and we will put the default field in there. So it will automatically brings this. And also you're going to set the default value for the customer state to Florida as well. So if you know that these people are going to be from here, not anywhere else, you can actually have a default so they don't have to fill it up. It makes their life easier. Placeholders are basically text string that appear within a form control. They actually provide a hint about what kind of data should be entered into the field. So basically, they are defined using the placeholder attributes. So you have the placeholder equal the text. The text is the text of the placeholder that you are going to have. So this is an example placeholder text for the name input box, first name and last name. That's what you have to put in there. So it's kind of giving you hints with how you have to put it. For the zip code, it's giving you that placeholder. You can see that it's going to be like that, the format of it. And then for telephone, it's going to show you like that, so the format of it. So you put, like, for example, your area code in the parentheses, and then you put 3 numbers dash 4 numbers. So in this example, you can see that some of the things that we have talked about. This is the legend. Of course, we talked about the labels, and we talked about the input text. We talked about how we can have default values in there, and we talked about the placeholder text that you can put for various input fields. Okay, that's it for 7.1. So you can watch the other lecture 7.2 in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.